My sister now earns more, and my mom told me to quit work, to be her maid after Dad died, so I moved out anyway. I, a 25 female, had to drop out of college in my second year because, unfortunately, my father had passed away from a cardiac arrest 6 years back, and I had to step up and take over the responsibilities of our home. My mother was a stay-at-home mom before that. She had no job experience, and even though she had a degree, it was kind of pointless to expect her to earn money. And honestly, dropping out of college and getting a job was a much more respectable alternative than having to beg my relatives for money and have them help us out. I could have worked through college, but I needed to take care of my mother, 46 female, and my sister, 22 female as well. My mom was devastated after my dad passed away, and my sister was just 16 at the time, so I could not expect her to take care of herself and our mom. My father was a store manager, and even though he had decent savings, it was not enough for the rest of our lives to pass comfortably. He did have life insurance, so we did get some money after he passed away, but I knew that going back to college was not an option for me. So after his demise, I decided to move back in permanently with my family and get a job, so that I would be able to take care of them and provide for them, just like my father had. I did not mind it, and I definitely do not have any regrets that I did something like that. I had to give up a lot. I had to give up any prospects of doing better in the future, because I was not even a college graduate. But I knew that if I worked hard, then life would find a way for me. That was my faith, and that's how I dealt with everything back then. I had mixed emotions because, on one hand, I was really depressed that my father had gone away so soon since I had a really good relationship with him. My sister was actually the one who had a better relationship with my mother, and I felt like the one person who meant the world to me was now no longer there in the world. But that was all the more reason for me to step up and take over his role. I was also kind of proud of myself at the time for being able to sacrifice so much, because I knew that he would have done the same thing if he was in my place. And I was happy that I was able to find a job which would enable me to support them financially. My mother took care of the household chores and I earned for the family. I also wanted to make sure that my sister's education did not suffer for any of these reasons, and I really wanted her to get ahead in life, so that was another reason for me to continue working and give up my education instead. I do not regret the sacrifices that I made, and if it came down to it, I would do it all over again. But now, I honestly feel like neither my sister nor my mother were particularly grateful for everything that I have sacrificed for them, which makes me feel really upset. My mother always had a bit of a victim complex. She would always keep grumbling about everything. Even after I got a job, she would complain about how there was not enough money for everything, and how I would have to do better if this was how things were going to be, which would put a lot of pressure on me. Sometimes I just wanted to yell at her and ask her if it was not enough that I had sacrificed so much of my life, and I was even helping her out in the first place. Because it would have been very easy for me to just detach myself from the situation and tell her that I was not going to help out with her, and she would have to look after everything on her own. I could have just dropped out of college, got a job, and been earning for myself without caring about my family. And what would become of them? Because with my dad gone, my mother would not be able to find a job on her own, and my sister was way too young. But instead, I chose to stay and help my family. I think at that age, it should have been enough for her, but she would just constantly keep complaining about how I was barely bringing home anything. I don't even know what she was expecting from a college dropout with no degree, 21 years of age, and barely any experience. She should have felt lucky that I even managed to secure a job in the first place. I was working as a receptionist at the time. It did not pay much, but it was enough for us to get by. As long as we did not spend anything frivolously, we would be fine. Thankfully, we did not have to pay rent, because the house was our own. The only thing that we had to worry about was all the bills. And I was also setting aside money for my sister to be able to go to college, because she was an exceptionally bright student, certainly better than me, and I knew that I wanted her to do better. I did not want her circumstances to affect her ability to shine in life. And my sister and I had a great relationship back then, when she was just a teenager and I was earning for the family, but both of us had to grow up overnight after our dad was gone. She would always be there for me, and when my mother would get too grumpy, she would be the one to shut her up. She always stood up for me because I didn't really like confronting my mother or fighting with her, because everybody had their own issues, and I didn't want to hurt anybody. So I just mostly kept to myself, and whenever my mother would start grumbling about how little money we had, I would just try to ignore it. But she would argue with her and tell her that I was already doing my best, and my mother and my sister had a closer relationship than we, so she actually listened to her, and she would keep quiet after that. I don't know what happened after that though, because we started growing apart. 4 years ago, my sister finally started going to college. My mother and I made sure that we took out a student loan for her, and I was going to pay it off eventually. With her help, of course. She was a finance major and went to a pretty reputable institute, so I was very proud of her. She had achieved all of that on her own, based on her merit and nothing else. She had fought against all the odds to get where she was, and I couldn't have asked for more. But after a few months in college, she started changing. She stopped speaking to me and wouldn't answer my calls. Even before that, we had made it a point to speak to each other every weekend, so that things would remain smooth between us. Even when she would come back home from college for the holidays or on specific weekends, she would have a bit of an attitude towards me, so I started feeling like she was looking down on me since that's how it appeared. All of a sudden, she was no longer my sister, and she started treating me like an acquaintance. She would be very formal with me, and it was really weird, watching her change. But I figured that this was just something that happened because of her company in college, since she would only hang out with mostly rich kids. And maybe she had started thinking of herself as too good for our family. She was probably just trying to fit in, and I was ready to forgive her for that because I figured that it was just a phase, and she would move on eventually after she graduated. That's just my theory though. I'm not sure if that's exactly what happened. All I was sure of was the fact that she had changed, and she was treating me like I was beneath her. It was not very direct either. Everything about it was very subtle, and I only picked up on it because I'm very sensitive to these kinds of things. Her tone towards me had changed. Her body language around me was not the same, and it just felt like she was overall uncomfortable with coming back home, and she wanted to detach herself from our family and our situation. At least my mother was old. She didn't seem to pick up on any of this, and if she had, she did not let it bother her. And then, she graduated a couple of months ago. She applied to a few jobs but did not hear back from any of them for the first few months. So she started working at a friend's father's company. She was living with us to save money, and I thought she would finally start getting back to normal. But unfortunately, it didn't happen, and she still continued to treat us like strangers. She would act like we were just glorified roommates and not her family. There was no gratitude and no appreciation for everything that any of us had done for her, and I found it very strange. But I was not going to demand that she change her behavior around us. That would just be petty. So I continued to work and lived up to my duties. Right now, I am working as an HR manager in a moderately successful company, and I'm happy with it. I get paid a lot more than I did at my first job, and I would say that we are able to lead a comfortable life. We are, by no means, rich, and I won't even say that we are close to it, but this is enough for now. However, 2 weeks ago, my sister surprised us with great news and told us that she had been hired by a pretty big company. It was not surprising because she had been a great student when she was in college, and it was just a matter of time that somebody would pick her up for her talents. And now she even had experience from her friend's father's company, so she was a shoo-in. She even told us the amount that she would be making once she joined, and it was a lot more than what I'm earning currently, but it makes sense because even though she's just starting out, it's still a pretty massive deal because of where she's going to work. I was happy for her, genuinely. I did not mind that she was going to be earning more than I was, and I was thrilled. The day that she told us about it, I had even bought dinner for everyone and had a whole feast. It felt like our family was going back to normal because, for one day, she had dropped the attitude and was acting like a normal person again. But the next day, she went back to her usual self, acting weird again. What really surprised me, though, was the way that my mother flipped after that announcement, and I'm still having a hard time coming to terms with it because I had done so much for this woman, and she's just treating me like trash now. 2 days after the announcement, my sister went out with a couple of her friends to shop for an upcoming trip, and when she was not at home, my mother told me that she wanted to speak to me in private. I did not have any idea what this could be about, but then, she told me that she wanted to discuss my career now. That was very confusing because I thought that was a very unnecessary thing to do since I was doing reasonably well. I did not expect to be doing as well as my sister because I didn't even have a degree, but I was happy with the life that I had. And I had achieved my goal, which was to make sure that my sister did not have to make any sacrifices like I had to. So I was content, I had done my duties, and now I just wanted to be able to lay back and let loose for a little bit. But then she told me that she wanted me to quit my job. I did not see that coming because I didn't think it was necessary. I asked her why she believed that I should quit my job, and she told me that since now, my sister was going to be earning. She thought that there was no reason for me to continue working anymore. She believed that my sister would be earning a lot more than me, and that we would not have to depend on my salary anymore. Since there was no need for me to work, she believed that I could be more helpful by staying at home and taking care of all the household work instead. In simpler words, she wanted me to take over from her role as a stay-at-home mother. She explained to me that she was getting old, and it was very difficult for her to continue doing all the chores around the house. She was acting like I was making her do it all by herself, but in reality, both of us split all the work around the house equally. Even though I was a working woman, I would still come back home and do my share of the chores, so that everything wouldn't fall to her. It was just my sister, who had been living with us for the past few weeks, who did not have to do any chores. But we were fine with that because we knew that she was going to move out in a couple of days, so we didn't want to put her under any more pressure than she already was. Keeping that aside, I had always split the work with her and made sure that she did not exert herself too much. That was literally the bare minimum that I could ask of her since she was not contributing to the household in any other way. I had never held that against her, but what she said to me, I thought that was very disrespectful. I told her that I was going to continue working because I thought that it was important for us to be independent. I did not want to rely on my sister, or anybody else for that matter, for money. So regardless of what she believed, I was going to continue my work. Instead of not bringing it up again out of respect, my mother started trying to pressure me into doing as she said. She did not bring any of this up in front of my sister, probably because she did not want to come off badly, but as soon as my sister was not around, she would make it a point to start talking to me about it, and would remind me that I would be more helpful with the chores around the house. And now that she was getting old, she could really do with help around the house. I don't even know what she was talking about, because she is not even that old, at least in my opinion. She did not have any major health issues, and no reason for her to act like she was going to collapse at any moment. I tried to ignore her to the best of my abilities, but she was really getting on my nerves. The only reason I was staying with her was because I did not want to abandon her since she had nobody else to rely on. However, it was getting more and more difficult for me to put up with her behavior because it was just absurd. And after about a week of putting up with her, I decided that I could not do this anymore, and I made up my mind to leave. I only waited for my sister to leave the house and go on her trip with her friends, and that very same day, I decided to leave the house as well. That would leave my mother completely alone, but I was beyond the point of caring because she had really pushed me to the brink. I felt insulted and I couldn't do this anymore. So the day that my sister left for her trip, I left the house within a few hours of that. I did not tell my mother where I was going. I did not even bother to tell her that I was leaving. So naturally, she called me several times after I had gone to ask me where I was. She even texted me, but I did not respond to any of it. I did not want to speak to her at the time, and I was just feeling very upset about how things had turned out. I had already spoken to a friend before I left that I was going to live with her until I found a place of my own, or at least until the issue with my mother was resolved, and that's where I am right now. I haven't gone back home yet, or started looking for a place, because I'm very confused about what to do right now. The reason for that is that my sister had apparently lied to all of us. That little trip that she had taken was not one that she was going to return from, and she had known it all along. The position that she had been offered was not even based here, but she had accepted it, and she was going to move. She had known about it ever since she was offered the job. It was not a sudden change. But she decided not to tell us because apparently she believed that we would try to talk her out of it. Maybe not me, because I was really happy for her and I would have encouraged her to move out, but my mother would probably have tried to force her to stay in the same city. So she had decided to leave without telling anybody, and her friends were actually helping her settle into her new home. So that was that. She put this all in an email and sent it to both of us, and also mentioned that she didn't think she wanted to keep in touch. That was the bit that actually sucked, because she said that she was going to embark on a new journey and start a fresh chapter of her new life, so she wanted to forget about everything that happened in the past. She did not want to remember any of the struggles that she had been put through, and that included her family. We reminded her of all the bad times in her life, and she just didn't want to deal with that anymore. I couldn't believe that she would say something like that, because it was very hurtful and disrespectful, especially to me, as I had literally sacrificed my future and career for her. And yet she could not find it in herself to be grateful for it. And she wanted to forget about her family because we reminded her of the bad times apparently. It was overall a really hurtful email, but over the course of the last few years, after she had started college, I had stopped having any sort of expectations from her. So I was not particularly hurt by that. I kind of saw this coming. I had a feeling that she was going to cut us off as soon as she could stand on her own 2 feet, and that's what happened. But my mother took it surprisingly hard, even though she had been treated the same way by my sister as I had. After we received that email, just a couple of days after my sister had left, she called me up, and I could tell that she was devastated. I actually accepted her call and finally spoke to her after that email. I was curious to know what she had to say about all of this. Since then, my sister was not going to be in touch with us, and that meant she would not be sending home any money either, so she had to go back to relying on me to support her. Literally a few days after, she had been trying to pressure me into quitting my job. I was curious to know how she would go about this situation and try to fix things with me. But when she called me, instead of apologizing, she started telling me that she was very upset about my sister's behavior and that it was very ungrateful for her to act this way. I did not say anything and continued to let her rant about my sister for a couple of minutes. I thought that she would apologize at some point, but that apology never came. She just went on talking about how my sister had let her down, and she was very disappointed in her. Then, towards the end of the conversation, she told me that now that my sister was not coming back home, she wanted me to come back, because she needed somebody to support her and I was her only option now. I got so upset when she said that because she sounded really disappointed that my sister had left, and now I had to come back home. So I told her that she could find somebody else to support her since she was the one who distanced me from her, and this was her fault now. Had done enough for her. I wanted to live life on my own now. I wanted to be able to do things for myself without constantly having to sacrifice all my happiness to take care of my family. My sister had done it, no questions asked, and now I want to live my life the same way. Having said that, I hung up and blocked my mother so she would not be able to reach out to me. It has been a couple of days since then, and my mother has tried every way possible to reach out to me. She got a different number, and then even got her friends to contact me, but I still feel angry because instead of apologizing, she keeps trying to guilt-trip me. She's been saying that she does not have any other family to rely on, and we are her only hope, and as her daughter, I should take care of her like she took care of me when I was a baby. She and her friends have been trying to make me feel guilty and manipulate me into coming back. But I have made up my mind, but I'm not going to go back until I get an apology from her. They think that I'm being too harsh and shouldn't expect an apology because my mother was only looking out for my family. And according to the math, she only suggested what would be best for us at the time. But now that my sister was out of the equation, we had no other option but to go back. And she had thought that maybe I did not enjoy working either, which is why she had suggested I stay at home. That's not good because if she had that, I would have made it clear to her afterward that I did want to continue working. I did not have any problem with that, so that should have been her signal to stop bringing it up, but she didn't. So we are in a pretty difficult situation right now. I feel bad for abandoning my mother, but what she did was not right. I had a few things to go back and help my mother because she told me to quit my job since my sister had a better one and she wanted me to help out at home. Update 1. Hi, thank you so much for the response. Most of you agreed that what I was doing was the right thing to do. I am really grateful for it. Unfortunately, I think I might have to keep in touch with my mother and at least send her money because she doesn't really have any other savings to fall back on. Whatever our dad left for us, we have already burned through all of it, and now I am our only source of financial support. So what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to look for a place of my own to live separately and send her money every month. I think that's the least that I can do for her. I don't want to abandon her because that would make me a bad daughter, and I'm not that heartless, to be honest. I don't know how my sister managed to do it, but I guess she doesn't have as much of a conscience as I do, or maybe she's not as stupid as I am. Whatever the case is, I just can't bring myself to entirely abandon my mother because I know that she will not be able to survive on her own. I'm gonna keep sending her money, but how she manages that money and lives on the amount that I send to her, that's her. I'm not going to live with her anymore. I'm gonna try and keep things low contact because I'm not really interested in speaking to her anymore. I have been doing everything for my family. I want to live for myself now. Update 2. It has been a week since I made my original post here, and today, I finally decided to speak to my mother and communicate my decision to her. I knew that it was not going to be easy and she was going to be very upset about it because she always expected me to come back. But I showed up at our house and she seemed happy. But then she realized that I did not have any bag with me, so she understood that I was not here for good. After I sat her down and I told her about what my decision was, she looked very upset and she told me that she couldn't believe I was leaving her side at this age. So I told her that she was really not that old, she was perfectly healthy and fine, and I would still be living in the same city, just one cab ride away, and if she ever needed me for an emergency, she could just call me and I would come right over. I would still be there for her, but I just wanted to have a life of my own now because I was sick of living for the sake of my family. I explained it to her as nicely as I could. She still seemed very upset about it, but at least she did not argue with me. She knew that she was not going to get a better deal than this, and she had already lost a daughter. She could not afford to push me away as well. She accepted it, and right now, my friend and I are looking for apartments near my workplace. I am super excited about this, and I can't wait to move out. Update 3. Hi. It has been a month since I left home. 2 days ago, I finally moved into my new apartment. It's not that big, but it's my own, and I'm super happy. It has a beautiful view and it's pretty affordable as well. I don't have to share it with anybody, and I can do whatever I want to. My friends helped me move in, and I'm planning to throw a housewarming party in a couple of days as well. I'm definitely going to invite my mother, and honestly, I'm just really happy. My sister and I haven't spoken in a couple of weeks since she sent that email. But I guess she heard from somebody who moved out of the house into a new apartment, so she reached out to congratulate me. I thanked her, and that was the end of our interaction. It's a bummer that she turned out this way, but it is what it is. I can't change it by being disappointed about it. Anyway, I'm just gonna try and focus on the positives right now. Update 4. So I am posting this right after the housewarming party, at midnight. My last guest left just half an hour ago. It was a crazy evening. Pardon any mistakes I make right now because I'm slightly tipsy at the moment. Anyway, I had invited my mother and a few of my co-workers to the party as well, but they did not stay for long and left around 8:30, just after dinner. My mother appreciated the house and she seemed reasonably fine. Anyway, after everybody else had left, my friends and I really got into the whole vibe and had a blast. We played games and gossiped about everybody, and it was nice. I don't think I'm gonna forget this night for a really long time.